and not deterred by the 5 p.m. slot, now 5:15 p.m. slot, but perhaps actually that was just arrogance. So first of all, I'm going to start with a test. How many of you, before today, were aware of the term crowdfunding or any of the crowdfunding platforms? Fantastic. Okay, good. Off to a good start. And secondly, including those who are here today, how many of you would like to know more? Perfect. Okay, I think I'm saved from being arrogant. And then lastly, how many of you have invested in one of those crowdfunding platforms, including Abundance? I won't pick on you to say us. So here potentially there is some work to do. Anyway, what is crowdfunding? In its kind of broadest sense, it's large numbers of people investing small amounts of money into large projects. And actually you could say a cooperative is exactly that, but I'm going to focus today on non-cooperative models. But why does it matter? Well, the Bank of England is talking about it, so does that mean we've gone from a nascent sector already to the establishment? I don't think so. But already today there's been about more than 500 million raised in crowdfunding platforms, and that's across, that's lending, that's in payday loans, it's all sorts of things, not just renewables, although Abundance is focused on renewables. And there are probably up to 40 businesses operating today, only 3 of those are regulated. But more regulation is coming. We are a regulated business, so we definitely favour it. That's not just because it's self-serving, but because this is people's money, and we care about people's money, and we really care that there are not businesses out there that abuse it, and that the sector fails before it ever gets a chance to flourish. Having said that, what we are wanting is regulation to be proportionate. We don't want to be regulated by a big bank who want to take in mind the amounts of money that we're talking about and what people are trying to do. A little bit though about what we're doing. We actually prefer the term democratic finance, but what do we mean by democratic finance? We mean we're focused on creating as many stakeholders as we possibly can, in this instance in renewable energy. And by doing that, we think that is going to be the most powerful way to level the debate against the vested interests in the more traditional form of energy. If we create people in the local community, if we make them into stakeholders in that project, then they will have a vested interest not only in the success of that project, but in the sector as a whole. And that's something that we very much want to facilitate. So in terms of what we're doing, we're allowing the general public, and that is from all over the UK. So, you may not live in the sunniest place, you may not live in the windiest place. We're creating a platform. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter where what your political or philosophical aspirations are, because ultimately we're creating a financial investment that is not compromising on returns, and that it can work for all levels of income. Sorry, that's fallen off the box. And that it should work with all kinds of projects, whether it's professional developers, whether it's community-driven, whether it's private or publicly owned. And in that way, we will get more projects going that will deliver more returns to the general public that have invested in them. We've raised 2.2 million so far. On the one hand, that's not a very big number in the context of what we've heard today, but equally it is also a big number. I did some quick maths around how many, and in the 2.2 million that would take in this room, it's something like £14,000. But if we think about where Nick's average was, I think he said his customers or his investors do an average of 18,000. Ours is much greater than that. We've got, at the moment, an average investment of about £1,500, but you can start at £5. So the point being that we really want as many people as possible to be able to get involved in this. Okay, but that's all very well. Why do people buy? In actual fact, in some ways, I didn't need this slide because we've had lots of evidence today to say that people do buy this. But there were some common themes when we did our research that came out, and actually these are common to almost all of the crowdfunding platforms. The first one is control, and it's really important. The crisis of 2007-2008 basically showed that actually people want to take back control of their money. Before we thought there were a lot of professionals out there that knew how to do it for us, maybe not anymore, and I'm looking to see that I'm getting lots of nodding heads or not. And the second point that came up again and again was tangibility. Actually, the city is all very good at creating investments and talking about returns, but it's in a very remote world, and actually a lot of us really don't have a good understanding of what it's about, nor are we interested in it. The beautiful thing about renewable energy is it is very tangible. The projects are right there. You can drive, you can see them, you can touch the kit if you really wanted to. You can show people at any given time, and this goes back to the control point, exactly where their money is and what it's doing and how it's working for them. And that has resonated very strongly. Our third theme that kept coming up again and again was accessibility. And accessibility is about the amount that you can invest. It's also about the language that's used, so we try as far as possible not to use lots of jargon. And it is also then about being able to get your arms around what the investment is and what it's doing. And another beautiful thing about renewable energy is you put the kit in the ground, it generates power, and you sell it. There is not a lot that is very complicated to understand, notwithstanding all of the experts in here who know how much engineering there is that goes into making a good system. And last, and definitely not least, was this point around usefulness. And when I say usefulness, it's actually people really caring about what their money does. Not just about what their money can do for them, but actually what can they do with their money. So the beautiful thing about renewable energy projects is you are putting your money to work, and you can see what it's building and you can see what it's doing. And that's come back time and time again. But on top of that, actually I thought I would just summarise some of the other things that come out in terms of why people are buying renewable energy, and also in particular in the way that we deliver it. And I've highlighted three that come up again and again, but there are many other different reasons which vary between people, whether it's UK energy independence, locally sourced investments, and that comes back to this point as well, particularly that's come up today, about being able to put money into things that are local to you. Uncorrelated, in terms of the returns you get from this, you're not exposed to stock market movements. Transparent green, lots there, and again those ones that come up time and time again, the inflation protection. Actually that was a big theme of Ian and his pension investor. The fact that a lot of the tariffs are either directly linked to inflation or have a large part of inflation in their development is a big draw for people at the moment. It's regulated in terms of the model that we deliver. And also you get this regular income twice a year, and also in our model we repay your capital twice yearly as well. Oh, I'm sorry, last but not least, the returns are attractive, and that's without tax breaks, and that is also just very much in terms of what most people can buy in the market today, or what they can do with their money. The returns on solar are still very good. But okay, very often when we talk about raising money from a lot of people, one of the first things will come back is that actually it's a lot of hassle. First of all, the way that we built our model is to take all of the hassle out of that, and I will come back to it. But in the meantime, why is it good for projects? Why as a project owner or developer should you think about this? First of all, it's long-term flexible finance at competitive rates. The way that we structure our investment is people lend money to a project, and they share in the profits from that project. So what you're doing is creating a virtual microgenerator out of each of those investors. But it means you're not fixed into fixed rate or even variable rate debt that has to get paid out irrespective of the performance of your project in any given year. And in terms of the competitive rates, it is a bit more expensive than bank debt, but as many of you will know, unless you have big projects, actually bank debt is very hard to come by. And since it is participating in the profits, it's there for the life of the project. So that's also pretty hard to come by as well, unless you have big projects. The second point in the way that we structure it is that as a project owner or developer, you keep control. It is a debt instrument, not equity. From our perspective, we're looking to get participation. We want lots and lots of participants in the sector, and we want control to stay with the experts. In other words, people like you in the room here. I mentioned the point about sharing in the profits. From a process perspective, again, this goes back to the hassle point. Actually, each time you do one of these transactions, it's much the same as the last. So it is a predictable and therefore increasingly efficient process. But the most important point on this slide is that you create a community of stakeholders for now and the future. And that's not just the sector overall. As an individual developer, if you have a pipeline of projects which you want to deliver, and you go to the public and raise money from them, and you respect the relationship that you're building with them, they will support you time and again, project after project. How does it work? I'm going to be very quick on this. It's unsecured, which means that actually if you have a brick project and you've got debt finance in there, you could include abundance and the investment that comes from our customers. I mentioned the 20 to 25 years. I mentioned the variable return into performance and the original investment repaid over the life of the project. The last point, the debenture is issued by PLC. I just wanted to mention that because PLC is not in the context of a big listed company like a Tesco's or a Schneider. It actually just means that you need to have a little bit more process around the way that you run your company, which means 2 company directors and a company secretary and 3 weeks for an AGM instead of 2. So it really is very straightforward. It's designed to be as friendly as it possibly can, all in line with our objective to get lots of people involved in this sector. What types of solar projects? I thought I would just mention this quickly. We can do feed-in tariff or ROC, rooftop or ground mount, community-driven professional developer, I mentioned public or privately owned. The minimum amount that makes this worthwhile doing is about £500,000 to £1 million. And the maximum £4 million or less is very straightforward for the same rule that Philip mentioned. But we can do more than 4 million, it just needs a bit more planning and we have to get the sign-off from the regulator. But my message here is that any project pretty much can do this. So if you are yourselves concerned about the fact that solar may become less popular, then hopefully we have provided a way to make it very easy to have a powerful tool to counter that. When to use us? Pre-planning, in-planning, post-planning, constructive and generating. In other words, at any point in the timetable. When we originally conceived Abundance, the pre-planning piece was very much focused on the wind sector, which, as we all know, is massively polarising. But if you look at the statistics, and Greg quoted the deck tracker before for solar, if you look at the deck tracker still for wind, you've still got 2/3 of support across the country for wind. But you have a very vocal and a very effective no campaign. So actually you then make it very difficult for people who are either neutral or positive to have a voice. So part of what Abundance was conceived to do was to give those people a voice, to give them a reason to say, actually, either I don't mind if this project goes ahead, but in fact if you let me invest in it and I can share in the financial benefits, then I positively want it to go ahead. So we definitely thought that actually we did see that, as more of large-scale solar is developed, that actually this could become relevant for the solar sector, and today it's just kind of confirming that that is an increasing concern. We've built a part, I should have mentioned everything that we do is delivered online, which is why we can do low cost and why we can have £5 as that minimum entry point. But we've built a place on the website where people can come and pledge their support ahead of time. And I think that is going to become an increasingly powerful tool. So for the last project, we've done 3 projects now. The first 2 projects took 6 months to build, to raise the capital. The third project took 2 weeks to raise the minimum amount. And before we launched that, we put the project up on the pledge page. It was there for 3 weeks before launch. We had 200 pledges of support, and those 200 pledges converted into 70% of the demand that we needed to get to the minimum. So if you're thinking about a project and you are open to including this, and I should say more than open, you're very seriously thinking about including that community investment, then we can put that project up there before you go to planning. If you do marketing as well in the local area and make sure that the local community knows that this is going to be an option, then they can start in a non-confrontational way to say that they'd like to get involved, and you can take that with you into planning. And then just the post-planning with grid connection, yes, those are easy projects for us to do, and also we can refinance projects. In fact, our third project was a refinance one. How much does it all cost? Down to the money, and what do you get for it? You get a lot for it, of course I would say that. But we are very much about being transparent about our fees and being very upfront about them. So we'll charge 3.5% to 5% of the amount that we raise, and that is a successfully. In other words, if we don't raise any money, we don't get paid. And then on an ongoing basis, we charge 1.5% again of the amount that's been raised for everything that is required to take the hassle completely out of getting lots and lots of small investors involved in your project. So in conclusion, we really hope that we have built a platform, we've created a platform that can build partnerships between project owners and the general public and make a difference to the future of renewable energy.